Next fake news article from fake news Forbes. Trump's businesses raked in $1.9 billion in revenue during his first 3 years in office. Donald Trump never really got out of business. So this is a hit piece on Donald Trump. And what they want you to think is that Donald Trump is raking in the dough being president, like it's actually financially benefiting him. But it's a little bit infuriating if you don't follow fake news Forbes, right? So last time I saw fake news, hold on, we had the beginning fake news article about the fake news about the Trump secretly withholding the 9/11 New York Fire Department funds, and that they used the fake news tactic here where they didn't tell you all the information. And then they want you to click. And when you don't tell them all the information, then it leads them to believe something else. Like when I read this, you definitely see this as pure evil. Report on Trump administration draining funds for FDNY's 9/11 responders draws outrage. And they're trying to say Donald Trump is the one who's wrong here. And but before that, Forbes had published this, which obviously contradicts everything that they said. This article from Forbes from September 8th, 2020, which is, a few days ago. It says Trump's net worth drops $600 million in a year to $2.5 billion. Okay, so this is obviously the same source. And it said this made his wealth plummet 20%. It said it's been a tough year for Trump. On top of impeachment and the pandemic, his net worth has dropped an estimated $600 million since last September to $2.5 billion with a B. That puts him at number 339 on Forbes 400, down 64 spots from a year ago. But you go read the other article and it definitely looks like it, he's like, oh man, he's raking in the dough, right? He's making money. I mean, all businesses try to run on zero profits. If they could run on zero profits, they would do that because they're able to shift the money into their own pockets when they do that. They have lots of scams where they have zero income and then they're millionaires. Like, okay, that's nice. I don't know exactly what to think about taxing the ultra rich because you got to look at it from the standpoint of the ultra rich in other countries. Do we want the ultra rich from other countries coming and buying up our country because we don't have ultra rich who can compete with them? Or is it a competition between whose ultra rich people can take over each other's country? I think it's the latter. I think that there is the immigrant class of people who are doing so well in America. They're making money hand over fist. This particular group of people definitely is hyper competitive and they wish to take as much as they can get. They will. You're crazy to think they're not going to continue taking as much as they want. So if we don't put in reasonable restrictions that prevent the outside world from doing the swoop, then our country is going to get bought up. They're trying to prevent us from enforcing our immigration laws so that they can pump up the number of immigrants in the country by 70 million people so that they can flood in their family and their demographics so they can make it so that the white man isn't in control so that they can take over. This is what the Democrats support. That's what they're all about it, man. They know that they can win on that platform because they got enough minorities in the big cities. You remember this from earlier in the show, my Democrat 4-tier racial caste hierarchy exposes how the Democrats work. They're fucked up ivory tower hierarchy that they've come up with. I am a computer scientist, so I noticed the hierarchy because I see these things, and I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest. I used to be a radical feminist, and I know how these people work. And so I just saw this. I'm like, damn, these people shady as fuck, bro. So what about this? Their whole thing is just to try to enforce this thing so they stay at the top. That's what you have to understand about Democrats. Who's in control of them? These ivory tower liberals. They're not very good people. They'll tell you anything that you... Well, hold on. They are good people. They're nice. They're hella chill. They are definitely hella chill one-on-one. But they're cutthroat. They're hyper-competitive. They're like the company Behringer. They're like a behemoth. They're at the top. They love defending their spot at the top of the ivory tower. They love it because they can whip. They got a whip and they can beat people and they can fire people. They can get away with crimes because they could pay attorneys to get them off, and they can pay prostitutes to get them off. And there is a lot of suspicion that some of them are involved with pedophiles, especially in Hollywood, with that new Netflix movie Cuties. That's another example of how there's pedophilia in... I mean, that one's straight pedo, bro. That Cuties show that's fucked up. Like, that's whack. But these people, like, that's just okay to them because they live in a culture where they do fucked up shit and they have weird, bizarre sex parties. And some of them do engage in pedophilia. It's true. So up top, day ivory tower, you got all the insanely corrupt power players. And I just love this image. The poor whites at the bottom. See so it started as a 5-tier racial caste system. And that was back when Democrats were extremely racist. They owned slaves, started the KKK. And it used to be that you got the white man on top, and then you got the white woman below that, and then you got the black man below them, and then the black woman below them. And then everybody else is on the 5th tier in any order that you want to control the 5-tier racial hierarchy. So that's where this comes from, is the 5-tier racial hierarchy, but they're white feminist. So this is the fucked up hierarchy that they have developed over here, is that they've got the poor whites on the bottom because they're here's the graph from the Pew Research. Says among validated voters in 2016, wide gap among whites in education. It leaves off Asians. Maybe I should redo it. Put the Asians on there. But you can see the Asians, the amount of money they make, they're at the top. So the people up top here, they're white feminist and they're Asians, and then there's hardly any black people. There's a very, very, very small number of black people up there. But then below them, you get the white feminists. These are the people who don't make enough money to be an ivory tower liberal, but they might work in the ivory tower or in another organization that forces you to go around in circles in meetings and say token anti-racist, pro-trans, pro-LGBT, QA, TCB, BB, and if you don't, they'll fire you. They'll berate you. They'll make you feel horrible if you did not use the right gender pronoun. So they all have to go around in the circle and then say, "Here's my gender pronoun. I am a man." You're like, okay. So let me get this straight. If somebody calls me a ma'am or a miss, am I supposed to be offended? I don't know about you, but any guy that I've ever known, if you call them a woman, like they would laugh. If you ever call a woman a man, some of them might get a little bit, they might be like, oh, feel bad, but they're probably used to it. It's true. If you called a pretty woman who does not look like a man, she would probably laugh at you, and then she'd probably go along with it, act like a tomboy, or they would say you're funny. But you can't disrespect the trans people by using a different pronoun other than the one that they're demanding. And that's because when they engage in this kind of behavior, they are able to control the ivory tower. This is how they control okay, so you have to understand, I'm an engineer, so I work with a lot of ivory tower liberals, or have in the past. I have been canceled. And the way that these people work is a lot of them are not competitive. I personally am a boss when it comes to engineering. And most people, vast majority of people, do not have anything to show. I have a lot of stuff. But a lot of these people, they've worked so hard to get their 4.0, and they think in order to do this, you have to do the science this really rigorous way, because that's the way they heard some doctor did it. But in reality, they've never actually done it. But they're the one who has heard the masters spew out all of the rhetoric. So they just go off of this dogma of, I heard somebody else said you have to be humble. So because they said you have to be humble, that means if you're not acting humble, if you talk about your achievements, that means that you're toxic. This is the way that these people think. So they themselves, they have very thin skin. They feel like they work so hard, and in order to get that hard, you have to be better than them. And there's no way that you could be better than them if you're like a stoner and then you don't have a fancy life and you don't have all these fancy degrees. There's no way that you could be in with the ivory tower liberals. So they get so pissed off. This is how you can tell the really insanely toxic people. All you have to do is show them some achievements and say that you don't have the ivory tower liberal credentials, and then act like you're not humble by just being proud of your achievements. And it will bring all of the insanely toxic ivory tower liberals will come out and start attacking you. I'm not even kidding. It's a thing. It's it's an instinct with these people. They have to say, no, there's no way you can do that. You cannot do that unless you go through all of these steps like the other doctors do. Really? So how did the first person do it? Figured it out randomly? Oh, right. You're like, because this is in the AI industry. I work in the AI industry too. The people who can make the most money with AI are totally not the doctors. They're not the people who can do PhD level math. They're the people who didn't do all of that shit, and they just took the research from the doctors and they went and made a product and they filled a market need, and they did not take a PhD's worth of time in order to do that. It's a sad reality. It's like the C students end up being the head of the company, and then the people who worked extremely hard, they end up in the ivory tower. And they get really pissed off because they're all stressed out stressed out. They're at work all the time, and they stress out on you. They flip out on you. And especially they have this thing where they can't. They're very temperamental when they're crunching. All right. So if they're stressed out and they've been working and then the shit's not working, the schedule is just nuts. There's like working overtime, sleeping at work sometimes. To crunch is what they call it. It's like, honestly, I think that shit should probably be illegal. I think that it violates our rights to be forced to do that. But people like to do that in the tech world. So I don't know what to tell you there. But if they don't like the tone in your voice, they will get rid of you immediately because they are also too stressed out, and everybody will act like a room full of whiny babies if one person starts acting negative. So they got to target the one person. If anybody starts acting negative, they got to target you. Usually, usually they'll like, my mouth is like, for them, it's like, that's like crazy. They can't deal with that. They can't deal with somebody who actually speaks real talk because they're so in their bubble up top day ivory tower that, and everybody listens to them. They can fire anybody they want. And then, so to them, people don't question what they do. And so from here, what I said, that would be hate speech to them. They would fire me. They would get rid of me. And this is the fundamental problem with these people and why they're so corrupt and rotten and why I speak out against them so much, because you have no idea how fucked up they are. Once you start looking in at exactly how stressed out they are from running these companies, and if they're not stressed out, how twisted they are, then you no longer have any sort of faith in them, and you pretty much just assume that they're going to fuck everything up at that point in time, and you probably should, because they do have a long history of fucking everything up. What is the story that I'm talking about? These corrupt people up top day ivory tower running Forbs. So you think that these journalists running Forbs and all these other corporations where there's rich people, like they're actually not insane. But trust me, a lot of these people who work these jobs full time, they're cuckoo. It's true. It's true. A lot of these people are absolute fucking wingnuts, man. They're fucking wingnuts. They're fruitcakes, dude. They have these bizarre, weird Marxist ideas. There's like this utopian thing. They're sitting up top day ivory tower, and they're like, oh, but I'm doing so well in my life. I have all of this money, so we should just make it so everybody has the same thing as me, and then we'll just share equally, and like, this is not going to cause any sort of problems. And like, because in their mind, they think I grew up in a house where we had everything. It was always in abundant. And then I had my one parent to tutor me to help me get through the calculus in high school. So I got the head start, and they think that like everybody in the world just has this, and that like you can snap your fingers with some magical government policy and then shake the magic money tree and all the money comes out, and then like magically all the resources are just there. And like, this is the fundamental problem with these people, is that all of this is fruitcake. None of it actually works in the real world. And they're just sitting up top day ivory tower preaching about policies that they don't have to deal with because they live in gated communities, while they say, no, you cannot enforce your illegal immigration policies because that's racist, because I don't want to offend the Latinos who mow my lawn. This is how fucked up these people are. This is the reality of California, where you have a monoculture, where you have a one-party state, and what you get is you get a corrupt batch of completely batshit crazy, insane people running your state. And this is what we've got going on here with Nancy Pelosi. And they're just getting bigger, man. It's a scam, bro. They got the public sector employee unions basically took over. It's because most people can't afford to live in big cities. So who can afford to live in the big cities? The people who are kind of like, they're already established, right? And so these people, a lot of them tend to work for public, for the government, and they are a member of these public employee union sector, or public sector employee unions. And so a lot of people just blanket will vote whatever the public sector employee unions say. They don't even look at it. Like these people, they just go whatever they heard at the PTA meeting, you know? And so the only way that they can stay in power is through the hood Democrats. So this is the fucked up thing about their fear. This is what you got to call out. I even got a show to call it out, right? You just like look at the map. See, I saw this shit without needing to put it on the graph, but you put it on the graph and it's like, wow, Democrats are fucked up. You know, you're like, where are the people at? They're in these blue bars. Here are the states. It's like, all right, who are they? Here's what they voted in the last election. It doesn't show the Asians. But you could see, in order for them to maintain this hierarchy, right, you have to put the minorities above the poor whites by giving them diversity tickets. and then the white feminists have to be up at the top because you can't get all of these white feminists out protesting at the Democrat race riots unless they're out there protesting for more money for themselves. Because let's face it, none of these white feminists ever have to deal with police brutality. You know, like it just doesn't happen with white feminists, dude. It also doesn't happen with the ivory tower liberals either. But in order to get the black people to vote for you, you need to get the white feminist on Twitter and in Hollywood to put out tweets and to prop up the ivory tower liberals up at the top of the ivory tower. And then you can see that this is a extremely racist 4-tier power structure that the Democrats have nationally assembled. And it's pretty obvious what they've done. Once you see it, you're like, what? Yeah, they give the minorities the diversity tickets, right? So that means that they rise up above the poor whites. And then you just basically cut it off so that the non-college whites are just stuck at hood Democrat level. We call them hood Democrats because the Democrats started the KKK, and the KKK were hoods. And these people are voting for Democrats. So don't ask me. I don't know. You know, there's a solution for it. You can actually walk away from the Democratic Party, and you can go from the side that is getting made fun of over to the side that is not trying to put you in a 4-tier racial caste hierarchy, right? In fact, we're trying to get you out of the 4-tier racial caste hierarchy, but people are attacking us nonstop. You can't talk about it. They say that's far right. I mean, it's like we're in a parallel universe here. Okay, I've gone too long on this story.